promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and 1 p.m. in Port Novo. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. The Senegalese government clarifies on the nation's leadership beyond April 2nd as debate continues for the selection of an acceptable election date. The Gambian government and ECOWAS initiate steps toward the creation of a hybrid court to prosecute former President Jammeh and other offenders.
This is also a testament to our determination to transcend borders and uphold the universal principles of human rights, and while significantly contributing to upholding international norms and law.
Mali's transitional authorities said to invest 25 billion CFA francs to ensure food security among vulnerable populations in 2024, and federal lawmakers in Nigeria instruct the recruitment of police cadets from all 774 local government areas to fight crime. Stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Abdullahi Hassan with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us and a warm welcome to our listeners in Gambia, Ghana and Liberia. Let's begin right here in Senegal, where the debate continues to rage around what may happen after April 2nd, the date on which President Macky Sall's term of office comes to an end. The electoral process to elect his successor is currently at a standstill. The national dialogue held earlier this week suggested that he should remain in office until his successor is elected. But the question of what happens at the end of the president's term of office in April remains. On this issue, the chairman of the Political Dialogue Committee, who is also the Senegalese Minister of the Interior, Sidiki Kaba, provided some explanations. Take a listen.
C'est le Conseil constitutionnel qui va trancher.
The Constitutional Council will decide in one of two ways. Either the Constitutional Council will say under Article 36.2, President Macky Sall, you cannot leave, you will stay in office for 2 months so that you can hand over the power to the democratically elected president chosen by the Senegalese people. Or the Constitutional Council can say that there is a power vacuum, in which case the President of the National Assembly automatically becomes President of the Republic. But there are some important clarifications to be made. The President of the National Assembly is a President who is required to organize elections within 60 to 90 days. This means that there are no longer any acquired rights. There are no longer 19 candidates. All candidatures will be reopened, so the whole process will resume.
Donc tout le processus va reprendre.
That was the chairman of the Political Dialogue Committee and also the Senegalese Minister of Interior, Sidiki Kaba. And still in Senegal, officials late Thursday gave an update on the migrant tragic boat accident, which indicates a jump in the death toll from 24 to 26 people dead. The mishap occurred off the coast of St. Louis, north of the country. Irregular migration is still rife in Senegal and has been claiming victims for several years. In response, the authorities recently introduced a national strategy to combat irregular migration. Boubacar Sy of the Horizon Sans Frontières, a migrants' rights NGO, says this strategy has shown its limitation.
L'État du Sénégal n'a pas pu régler le problème.
The state of Senegal was not able to solve the problem or to put the debate in a systemic way. Migration in all its diversity, its complexity, and its transversality. And that's why this file is on the agenda. The whole policy cannot work. We have to solve all the problems related to the endemic, chronic, and structural unemployment of young people. In Senegal, the causes are multi-sectoral and multidimensional. We simply had to, in an inclusive approach, try to bring together all the parties. Since today it concerns everyone, it's a social fact. There is even a new wave with the arrival of fishermen today who say they are crushed by industrial fishing and illicit fishing, undeclared and unregulated. So we had to, as we had to propose, go to much wider perspectives than the plan that was implemented and that is being implemented today. Because the phenomenon has never dropped in intensity. Here we are not talking about it, but talking about politics. I think that human security and all these issues will have to be put at the center of the debate. Youth must be the major concern of the candidates, because when in a country youth, which is a wealth, has become a burden, then there is a problem.
Qui est une richesse est devenue un fardeau, il y a un problème.
That was Boubacar Sey of the Horizon Sans Frontiers, a migrant rights NGO, speaking about the latest tragedy that occurred in the country. In the Gambia, the government and ECOWAS have taken a major step towards the creation of a hybrid court for the prosecution of perpetrators of human rights violations in the country between July 1994 and January 2017. The inaugural meeting between the two parties in Banjul will eventually pave the way for the trial of former Gambian leader Yahya Jammeh. Recall that some alleged offenders during Jammeh's 22-year rule have been heard both at home and abroad while he is exiled in Equatorial Guinea. WEDR's Sankle Janko now reports.
This partnership between the Gambian government and ECOWAS underscores their unwavering resolve to confront the dark chapters of the Gambia and forge a path towards reconciliation. The establishment of a hybrid court to confront the most serious crimes committed over 22 years between July 1994 and January 2017 signifies a pivotal moment in their quest for justice. Dauda Jallo is the Attorney General and Minister of Justice of the Gambia.
This is also a testament to our determination to transcend borders and uphold the universal principles of human rights, and while significantly contributing to upholding international norms and law.
From the inception of the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission, TRRC, to the submission of its final report, hundreds of individuals bravely shared their stories of pain and suffering, but more importantly, their hope for justice. The Gambian government, having received and accepting the TRRC recommendations, recognized the domestic legal framework may not be sufficient to address crimes of such magnitude. This setback necessitated the collaboration with ECOWAS to benefit from its pool of resources. Miata Lily French is the ECOWAS representative in the Gambia.
This court will be based in the Gambia, but will have the option to hold proceedings in a third country based on expediency. The Gambian base, though, will offer not just victims, but the general Gambian populace a vantage point from which to view and follow the proceedings. It is quite possible that there may be victims who never came forward to complain, or those whose families and loved ones may have been affected by the violations over the years, but never lived to tell the story.
The establishment of a hybrid court represents a bold step forward in pursuit of justice, and this meeting, according to experts, sends a signal that the victims will get their day in court. For Newslink and West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Sankele Jenko reporting from Banjul.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Remember, we stream live on wadr.org on Facebook and YouTube. Now, Mali's Food Security Commission says the country faces no risk of famine this year. The assessment given by the Commission follows a successful mission in 2023, with food distribution reaching more than 1 million people. In 2024, however, an estimated 1.3 million Malians are in urgent need of food and nutritional aid, according to a presentation at the 19th session of the Program and Policy Coordination and Monitoring Committee. Tawfiq Abdel Nasser reports that stakeholders are also calling for support from technical and financial partners.
According to the minister responsible for food security, the National Response Plan for 2024 is forecast to cost 25 billion CFA francs. In 2023, out of a forecast of more than 1.2 million people in need of food assistance, more than 1.1 million benefited from cereal distribution at an estimated cost of 37 billion CFA francs. More long-term initiatives are planned to assist more than 1 million people in need of food in 2024, as well as to support the month of Ramadan, announced the minister. Ridwan Ag Muhammad Ali said, and I quote, "The special feature of this year is that there is no risk of famine in Mali. A new concept called the Malian Food Facility has been set up by the Malian authorities. The operation, to be launched in the first week of Ramadan, will provide a 50% subsidy on the number of food products for 600 households in Bamako, the capital. The head of the Early Warning System Division points to an increase in the number of vulnerable people suffering from food insecurity in the 2023-2024 season compared to the 2022-2023 season. According to him, this situation is due to insecurity. It should be noted that the most food insecure areas in Mali are in the north and center of the country.
Tawfiq Abdelnasser with that report. Elsewhere in Côte d'Ivoire, authorities have announced the lifting of the export ban on agricultural products in the country. The suspension is, however, temporary and affects a number of food items. Ogebirika tells us more.
The Ivorian government, in a statement, declared that the lifting of the temporary suspension measure only applies to yams, cassava and its derivatives, as well as plantains. This lifting ratified by the Minister of Commerce and Industry, the Minister of State, the Minister of Agriculture, Rural Development and Food Production, as well as the Minister of Finance and Budget, still indicate that the export remains subject to authorization. The text warns that any failure to comply with this provision is subject to sanctions provided for by the law relating to competition. Côte d'Ivoire had earlier imposed a ban to control the export of food products to avoid an imbalance between supply and demand, which particularly took effect as the country prepared to host thousands of football fans for the 2023 AFCON Games. The state also justified the measure as a means to ensure a regular supply of markets with food products and to guarantee the food security of the population. The suspension, which was announced on Thursday, took effect from February 22, 2024.
Ogebirika reporting. The Sierra Leonean government and the Republic of China have signed beneficial agreements on infrastructure, education, agriculture, and the $9 million financial aid. Freetown and Beijing reached this agreement during President Julius Maada Bio's state visit to Chinese President Xi Jinping. The countries have a long-standing relationship that was deepened during Sierra Leone's fight against the deadly Ebola virus and COVID-19 pandemic.
President Maada Bio disclosed during talks with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping that Sierra Leone draws inspiration from China's achievements in national development, growth and rejuvenation. Bio expressed his country's willingness to strengthen cooperation with China on the Belt and Road Initiative, infrastructure, trade, agriculture, investment, education and public services. The Asian giant economy further announced a $9 million financial aid to Sierra Leone, comprising $6.9 million in economic and technical assistance, $2.7 million in debt cancellation, as well as 1,500 tons of food assistance. The host, President Xi Jinping, says he's ready to work with African friends, including Sierra Leone, to make this year's session of the Forum on China and Africa Cooperation a success. After the talks, the two heads of state witnessed the signing of bilateral cooperation documents in the fields of the Belt and Road Initiative, agriculture, economic development, and the implementation of the Global Development Initiative. Back in Sierra Leone, critics of the government say that the Chinese financial support package is far too little since the country currently owes China $78 million. President Julius Maada Bio is scheduled to conclude his visit to China on March 2.
Augustine Coley with that report. Meanwhile, in neighboring Liberia, the government says it is concerned about the current situation facing former Liberian refugees in the Budu Buram refugee camp in Ghana. The concerns were expressed by the Liberian Authority after hundreds of Liberians residing in the camp, located 44 kilometers away from Accra, were rendered homeless. The demolition exercise was carried out by the Gomwa Fete Traditional Council. WDR's Darlington Popper reports.
The Liberian government, in a statement, stated that the ongoing demolition exercise in Ghana has uprooted 1,600 former Liberians who now sheltered in public facilities. It said the situation is causing the Liberian families, especially the women and children, untold hardship. The executive director of the Liberian Refugee Network, Emmanuel Taran-Marshall, says the Ghanaian authorities are not to blame. Hence, he has launched a campaign to mobilize resources to repatriate those stranded in Ghana.
They've done their best. We want for the government to send a delegation, immediate delegation to Ghana and take those people from out in the streets. Let the babies find somewhere to go. It's very traumatic, and see how best we can bring our people back home. If it's a charter flight, or if they want to come by road, I know Ghana is waiting to do some. All will not just be on us. If we can appeal to the international communities, UNHCR, the European Union, and other counterparts, we can have something done.
Brenda Alberta Todd, a Liberian who witnessed the demolition, expressed a concern about the manner in which the exercise was conducted. She is calling on a Liberian authority to immediately intervene.
Machines moving, structures being, broken down, and people crying, metting out there. Somebody says if I had not waken up earlier, I would have been, crushed in the house. It places me in a very devastating state, giving them that, mindset and that assurance that, yes, this can be done. And we are going to be your voices. We're going to talk to the government, and let people know that this is it.
The Liberian Authority has vowed to dispatch a team to meet its counterparts in Ghana to amicably resolve the matter. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Darlington Pogba in Monrovia.
You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM and online on WADR.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. The Senegalese government clarifies on the nation's leadership beyond April 2nd as debate continues for the selection of an acceptable election date. The Gambian government and ECOWAS initiate steps toward the creation of a hybrid court to prosecute former President Jammeh and other offenders. Mali's transitional authorities set to invest 25 billion CFA francs to ensure food security among vulnerable populations in 2024. Still ahead in the news, federal lawmakers in Nigeria instruct the recruitment of police cadets from all 774 local government areas to fight crime. We also have the guest interview and a sports update. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Many thanks for staying with us. In Nigeria, the legislature is seeking to restructure the recruitment process for the National Police to urgently tackle the growing security threats. The directive issued on Thursday by the National Assembly, which also targets the Police Service Commission, requires the police to recruit operational personnel from Nigeria's 774 local government areas. As David Vincent reports, the upper chamber has directed the Committees on Police Affairs and Legislative Compliance to ensure its implementation.
The urgent measure by the upper house of the National Assembly stems from concerns by citizens over the increasing rate of kidnapping, banditry, intercommunal and the farmer-herder conflicts in different regions of the country. According to the Senate, the police force is to recruit a minimum of 10 candidates from each of the 774 local government councils that together make up the 36 states of Nigeria. The Red Chamber states that restructuring should henceforth be part of the police annual recruitment processes. But with a population size of over 200 million, is this a sustainable security arrangement for Africa's largest economy? Cesar Pai is a security analyst.
It's a welcome development that a directive has been given that the manpower be added in the recruitment of the police officers. And that shouldn't just stop within the police profile alone, but it should be extended beyond other military and paramilitary agencies, other security agencies of government. And then not just adding the number, but also to equip them adequately. By so doing, I think it will help.
The resolution reached as a result of a motion moved by lawmaker Emmanuel Odende Memga stresses the need for the Police Service Commission and the Nigerian Police Force to adhere to the federal character principle in the recruitment of constables in the force, but did not mention a deadline for the implementation of the directive. President Bola Tinubu's regime, barely a year old, remains to address the main security crisis it had promised to fix upon assuming the mantle of leadership, cause of growing frustration among the populace.
David Vincent reporting. Let's take you to Ghana, where some Ghanaians have applauded the passage of the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill, popularly called the Anti-Gay Bill. On Wednesday this week, Ghana's parliament approved the passage of the bill after completing the third reading. The bill awaiting President's assent aims to criminalize LGBTQ+ activities and impose penalties for their promotion, advocacy, and funding. Some Ghanaians who shared their thoughts with WADR urged the president to assent to the bill.
Ghana is a religious country, so that's all. On signing, so that we can practice those things. Charlie, you have to sign, assent his signature to it. Then, the engine too, that we cannot do those things in the nation.
We should sign it. We should pass the bill. So it's against our religion. Yeah, that is it. If they should do it in secret, and I think that's the best thing because, I mean, it's not right for a woman and a woman to end up getting married. It's not right. How they even produce?
Anti-LGBTQ, yeah, I'm in support of it. Yeah, it can be practiced. That one is very good. For me, I support it very well. If they pass the bill, it will really happen and it will be good.
I am of the strong view that once the parliament has okayed the bill, government should just assign pass it into law. No one is curtailing anyone's freedom. All right, we live in a society. It is what the majority decides that becomes rules for every one of us. If not, some of us would like to walk naked. We had no one, we don't derive anybody, but because society frowns against that, we all are forced to behave. So until society becomes so corrupt or so loose to agree to such practice.
Politics,
analyses on major news,
social matters, and all. This is The Guest.
The guest segment this afternoon highlights President Julius Maada Bio's visit to China, where several agreements have so far been signed between the two countries. The agreements range from education to agriculture, infrastructure, health, and human resources. But the amount of the council that Sierra Leone owes China is a major debate where citizens expect a positive outcome from Bio's visit. Barney Chidi is a former Sierra Leone lawmaker.
I think it will benefit Sierra Leone because we're having constraints with the World Bank and the Western donors in terms of they're having this problem of this good governance and debt restructuring. So with this one now, there are agreements and they gave us aid and debt relief about $50 million. For the Chinese, 50 is too small on my own taking, but better take what you have now and then further and negotiate with the Chinese because they're hard partners though. Because we're having problem with the toll gates in Sierra Leone. So if we are looking at the agreement they've signed, maybe for the bridge or anything, we have to look at it with a fine tooth comb to cut for the T's and I's to be crossed and should be presented to Parliament so we can have the opportunity to look at it and come with a very good agreement that will serve the next generation.
So the argument by commentators or critics of President Bio that the amount of debt that China decided to cancel for its part that Sierra Leone owes is too little. Is that argument valid in any way?
The 50 million, the debt relief of 50 million, to me is very, very small, but at the same time, take what you have now, and then later on, other agreements will come in and do it. But I don't know the details too much, whether we have mineral agreements with them or not. But Chinese are very crafty and hard bargainers, so at least we have to make sure what we give them, we'll make sure we cross our T's and dot our I's.
And so does this call for a rethink and re-strategizing on the part of Sierra Leone that it moves away from a borrowing nation to a productive state? And if yes, how can that be achieved?
Well, it depends on what the agreement is. We have King Ho here now, because then there was a bit controversy with Arise and King Ho. By the end of the day, they gave it back to King Ho to manage the railway system because they are exporting it. But to me, that would have sounded like a monopoly. But if you look at the example from Kenya, the railway system, sometimes it looks so good to be true, but very, 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 they have so many cuts that sometimes the country will be loaded with burden of paying back that loan that they give us. Sometimes you have soft loans, sometimes you have other loans. But in terms of minerals, we have to make sure, we have in our Constitution, Section 40, that any agreement you sign have to be tabled to Parliament for it to be ratified. And ratification means you don't look at the numbers, but that is, we have the numbers, we have to pass it, but look at the interest of Sierra Leone to be patriotic.
You talked about interest, which is my last question to you. Is the ease of doing business in Sierra Leone that conducive that will really attract investment? Because Bill over there in China is seeking to bring or attract more investors to Sierra Leone.
Very interesting question. But let me give you a point. Don't forget, if you have a stable economy, and we are trying to foster unity in diversity in our political class, bringing so many people on board, and the semblance of making sure that we have a justice system that is working. At least that can attract investors. But sometimes we have to be mindful of some of these fly-by-night, briefcase investors coming under the guise of China. Not to cancel sun. Sometimes what I mean that is in our local parlance, I've just said it. Sometimes let us have proper investors that they will do proper due diligence, and at the same time it should be a win-win situation from the less development to the developed country. So we have to be mindful of that and make sure. A problem now is to make sure we consolidate the good governance structure. And when you have good governance and you bridge the divide, and then you make sure investors will come in and there's a justice system that will look into the matter for arbitration.
That was Bani Chidi, a former Sierra Leone lawmaker. Here now is Sankle Janko with the latest in the sporting world.
Former Manchester United midfielder Paul Pogba has been handed a full-year ban from football after failing a drug test last August. The 30-year-old tested positive for testosterone after Juventus' first game of the season against Udinese and was given his hefty punishment by anti-doping prosecutor's office in Italy on Thursday. Pogba's lawyers had rejected a plea deal and hoped to get their client a lighter sentence after claiming he had accidentally ingested the substance that caused the positive test. However, the prosecution did not believe Pogba's defense, and he has now been given a ban that could potentially end his career, as reported by the Daily Mail. However, Pogba has confirmed his intention to appeal to the Court of Arbitration for Sports. Pogba said, "I have been informed of the Tribunal Nacional Anti-Doping's decision and believe that the verdict is incorrect. I am sad, shocked and heartbroken that everything I have built in my professional playing career has been taken away from me. When I am free of legal restrictions, the full story will become clear, but I have never knowingly or deliberately taken any supplements that violate anti-doping regulations. As a professional athlete, I would never do anything to enhance my performance by using banned substance, and I have never disrespected or cheated fellow athletes and supporters of any of the teams I have played for or against. As a consequence of the decision announced, I will appeal this before the Court of Arbitration for Sports," Pogba added. Pogba will turn 31 next month, meaning he will not be able to return to the pitch until he is almost 35 unless his appeal is successful. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Christian Mukidi and Maojo Juv for the technical support. Do interact with us via social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, on Facebook, now WADR English Service, and stream live on WADR.org. I'm Abdullahi Hassan. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to News